We are expecting global economy to, in a sense, stabilize this year. Growth is going to be around 2.6%, which is pretty much what we had last year. After a series of negative shocks we have seen, this is the first time global economy is stabilizing at a growth rate. It's not slowing. So in that sense, the news good. And we see that inflation is coming down without a major impact on labor market, and financial conditions are a little bit improving as well. So all in all, the global economy is set for a soft landing. Conflict, global tensions, especially geopolitical tensions, weigh heavily on global growth prospects. Obviously, these tensions, especially armed conflict we see in different parts of the world, have huge implications for the lives as well as livelihoods of people living in those locations. But beyond those, these types of conflicts translate into volatility in markets, especially, of course, in commodity markets, and have consequences for economic growth and investment because they increase uncertainty, and with uncertainty, of course, the investment decisions are getting postponed, consumption decisions are getting postponed. What we have seen over the past 4 years, number of trade restrictions has increased dramatically. In fact, the number of trade restrictions has been doubling and has been increasing at a rapid pace. And when you look at policy uncertainty associated with trade, we see the highest level of policy uncertainty associated with trade in a major election year since 2000. We looked at all the major election years. This year is, when it comes to trade policy uncertainty, is much, much higher than what we have seen in previous election years. Now, how these tensions translate into trade growth, when you look at the numbers, you already see that trade has been quite weak. Last year, there wasn't much trade growth. This year, trade growth is going to improve. We are expecting around 2.5% growth, but that's half of what we saw, during the decade prior to the pandemic on average. So all in all, it's already a difficult environment when we think about trade growth, and these measures countries are introducing in the context of trade restrictions, in the context of inward-looking policies, are not helping. Number one risk is geopolitical tensions, and there is no question about that. These tensions have reached quite high levels. In some cases, of course, they manifest themselves as armed conflict, Russian invasion of Ukraine, a very serious conflict in the Middle East. These have significant implications when we think about commodity markets, when we think about real economy. But above and beyond that, when we look at the disputes between major economies, especially in the context of trade, they weigh on real economy in the sense that they create uncertainty, and restrictions on cross-border commerce obviously have implications for global trade. Trade has been an engine when it comes to poverty reduction, when it comes to job creation, when it comes to economic growth for the past 3 decades. That engine has been losing steam. And given the kind of the recent developments we see in the context of geopolitical tensions, we need to be very careful about how, we conduct a policy in the context of trade, how we formulate, these global supply chains, as they have, significant consequences for emerging market and developing economies. Debt levels have risen significantly, especially after the pandemic in emerging market developing economies. We focus on some countries in this latest report. These countries have weaker credit ratings. Some of them have lost market access. They haven't been able to, borrow in the way they used to do 3-4 years ago, given the kind of the very high debt levels they have and limited fiscal space. These economies have been growing at a much slower pace than they used to grow prior to the pandemic. So all in all, what we see, debt is weighing on the global recovery. And unless we have a speedy resolution of these debt challenges, we see in some of these developing economies, these problems are going to magnify and take a toll when it comes to health, when it comes to education services, with significant consequences for long-term growth prospects. Now, when it comes to lower income countries, and when we think about broader challenges in the context of climate change, broader challenges in the context of fiscal problems they are facing, and of course the need to meet the kind of the development goals global community set for itself by the end of this decade, there is no question there has to be more financial support from the global community to help these economies, to help to basically develop green infrastructure, to accelerate when it comes to development of education services, the health services. At the end of the day, these lower income countries will bring significant amount of new entrants to global labor markets. We see sizable demographic changes. On the one hand, advanced economies are aging. On the other hand, these low-income countries, lower middle-income countries are continuing to bring, new labor to global labor markets, new entrants. Their population growth is still at healthy levels. Now, we need to make sure these new entrants to the global labor markets are basically well educated, able to perform in market economies. And however you look at it, there has to be a concerted effort on the part of global community to help these economies. These economies themselves, they need to basically undertake reforms to improve their fiscal positions and to improve, overall institutional environment so they are able to attract foreign direct investment. Some advanced economies have already started cutting interest rates. Some others are, of course, waiting to see stabilization in the context of inflation and labor markets. Ultimately, country-specific conditions and how these conditions interact with, external environment will determine the interest rate path in major advanced economies. There are risks when these economies reduce interest rates much faster than what would be needed, and there are risks if they delay. If they, of course, reduce interest rates and inflation continues to keep up increasing, that would be a major challenge for the credibility of these central banks. If they delay the kind of the interest rate reductions, real interest rates will remain elevated. Of course, sooner or later, we'll see a material impact on real activity, and that means the economy will slow and unemployment can easily pick up.